Hi, I'm Sergey and I am a concept artist working in the entertainment industry. In this short video I'd like to share some of the process I went through while creating this image and hopefully give you a general presentation of my day-to-day work pipeline. I hope that will be useful for some of you, so let's get started. Usually the first thing I do when starting a new project is collecting a lot of references, but for this piece I had quite a clear picture in my head, and my go-to reference was Matt Reeves' Batman. I also collected several images of the interiors I liked to have a better understanding of what inhabits them. Next I'm going to Blender and starting to create my scene. It goes from big to small. First I create the floor and the walls to frame my environment, and then start adding details following the same rules. First come big furniture elements as well as door and window, and only then I add more and more little things that make the environment believable. Some of the models I did myself, and I also use a lot of free models here, which I downloaded from the internet. I also get use of Megascan's library, especially for the material part. When all my scene is gathered, I start working on lighting the environment. The same rule goes here. First I create the main light source using an HDRI, and then start filling the room with smaller sources of light. This process is full of trial and error, but finally I get it all done and render the final image using Cycles, Blender's render engine. This is the result so far. Now let's move to Photoshop, where we'll finish it up. So here I have my render and a couple of render passes, which I did to help me work with the image. First of all, you can see that the picture lacks tonal differentiation. It also looks muddy and you can't really see the depth in the image. I always start working with tones, so here I use the depth pass to create it. This is how it looks. I copy it and paste it in mask of a new layer. Then I paste a color into it and choose a lighten mode. Now you can see the difference, and it already looks much better. So here is before and after. It's still not good enough, so I create multiple levels layers and start working more precise, building more clear separation between foreground, midground and background. When I am more or less happy with the tones in my artwork, I start adding photos to my scene. In this case, I did almost everything I need in 3D, so there won't be much of them. First, I decided to work on the window. I put this image in screen mode and adjusted it to fit the perspective. I used Clown Pass from Blender to help me mask out the blinds and duplicated it a couple of times. Good. Next comes the character. I put a 3D model in the scene just to help me a bit with perspective and proportions, but in the end I'll completely cover it up with photos. It was tricky to find a good photo reference for the face, cause the position is a bit odd. I chose this one and combined it with a couple of other images to have this as a result. Then I started dressing him up. I found it more convenient to put clothes in layers, so I started with a shirt, then added a vest and finally put on a coat. I had to use two photos for the last one to get the further part of it in right perspective. All what's left is the trousers and the shoes. I was lucky enough and I found a perfect image that already had all I wanted in it. So it just masked out the parts I needed, corrected the perspective and the colors. As you can see, the process is quite repetitive. Here I also add some blood stains to help tell a story. I use PNG images and put them in multiply or darken mode, depending on what looks better. Now that I have all the elements in my picture settled, I add some blur in the foreground and closer to the edges of composition. It helps to guide the viewer's eye. The only thing that stays sharp is in the center of composition, and it is exactly where people will look. After all that is done, I work on color correction. I like to play with color lots in Photoshop, but in the end I always put a camera raw filter where I do a final color correction. This is before and after. Now it's almost ready, I'm gonna spice it up with some effects. To convey the feeling that we are watching through the camera lens, I put quite intense lens dirt all over the picture and create some light bloom to help sell this feeling even more. As a final touch, I add a bit of distortion and play with chromatic aberration. So here is the final image and the end of this video. I hope it was useful for you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate and ask it in the comment section. Also feel free to write me in social media. All the links will be attached in the description. Thank you for watching.